not ready.
Can you hear me now? You should be able to. Yeah, so Windows Updates decided to just do a bunch of updates for some apparent reason. Yeah, so, Krista, you're echoing it. So, I said I was going to show you guys my balls. I went to Micro Center and bought some energy drinks. I'm cheating on Ma today. So let's see. You guys got to ask questions in the chat. I really don't have a rant today. Surprisingly, I really don't. I will be doing some work on my Ender 3 Pro after the stream later today. So I'll probably pop. Well, don't we? What do we have going on? Oh, I gotta clean the garage tonight, right after the stream, and I have help. So later this evening, I want to pop on and do a heat break replacement. So I've been having issues with the heat break on this with certain filaments, and I'm going to take this as an opportunity to swap in our new bimetal one. So yeah, that drink brings back LAN party memories. Yes, that was my first experience with it. You can get it at Micro Center. So if you guys have a Micro Center by you, Micro Center typically has balls, and if you ask them for a case, they come in packs of 24. You can get a whole case, and they give you, I think it's like $7 for 6, so it's just a little bit over $1 a can. Otherwise, I think it's $2 a can. But probably one of my favorite like pre-made energy drinks. It's just they're hard to find. So, let's see. The question about is live. Hopefully, it's working. It looks like it's pulling stuff in. I see Derek asked a question on Discord. The question bot will only put questions in YouTube. So I see Tor switched that over. But yeah, you guys cannot ask questions in anything other than YouTube right now. I don't have any integration set up with the bot. The bot just sits in YouTube. So yeah, but I see Tor grab it. So basically, you guys ask questions if you're first time here. Welcome to the stream. There shouldn't be any swearing on this stream, hopefully, today. There's nothing really grinding my gears. But this is a quick Q&A where you guys can ask us questions about your 3D printer and specifically FDM. So if you guys are doing stuff with resin, I'm not the guy to ask. I specialize in FDM printing. And it can be about our products. It can be about general printer troubleshooting. And I will do my best to answer them. So, Tim Shea, I trimmed it. I didn't get rid of it. But yes, it's getting warm here. It's like 80 degrees with 1,000% humidity. So I was getting very anxious and like it's hard to explain, but I get like really on edge when it's warm out and I've got too much facial hair. So, But anyways, yeah, so Chris is officially, this is our first week. She's going to be helping us out with all our social media stuff. So she's our social media manager. She's been going through today and reaching out to some YouTube channels to try to get some promotions going on. So if you guys do have a 3D printing related YouTube channel, reach out to us and we'll get you over. So I have somebody that's going to be helping me out with our email blasts and other marketing and doing promotions and giveaways with other channels. So getting a little more engaged so everything's not falling on me. So yeah, we're going to get into this. Craig Williams, what happened to the latest build/review video? There's a long queue up, and then there was a unrelated rant, so I have it being edited right now on YouTube. You can actually go back and edit the video to chop off part of it, and apparently it's taking forever for some reason. But once that edit's done, it'll be back live again. I'm going to skip this one. So the first question, which is question 784 since we started using the bot. Chris is actually taking notes on the timestamps here. So that way when people replay this, we'll have timestamps as part of her job that she's going to be doing is getting timestamps on our videos. So you can click through, and then we're also going to be pulling out sections from the videos and uploading them as shorter clips because not everybody wants to watch an hour-long live stream. So you guys can ask questions in the chat right now. Make sure you're asking them on YouTube only and putting an exclamation point Q in front of the question for the bot to pick it up because it comes into a file that I'm looking here. So if you see me looking like this, I'm reading the question list. So that being said, our question number 784, and that's Derek, is asking, I have a printer and a Pi sharing an easy plug. Is there a way for Octoprint to safely shut down the Pi before shutting down the easy plug? Not easily. The way, what I always recommend is people power, if you're using a plug, whether it's our easy plug or some other Wi-Fi plug, you should have your Raspberry Pi powered from a separate power adapter, and that Pi should just be on all the time. Your Pi doesn't take up that much power, but your printer idling actually does. You know, to the point where we're actually going to be going through and putting easy plugs on all of our print farm printers, because a lot of them do sit idle. In my office, I have them on basically every machine here, because the noise would otherwise bother me too much with them all idling. But in the print farm, I'm going to start doing this just to save power. So the only way I could think would be having some sort of timer. So the easy plugs are running a firmware called Tasmota, and Tasmota supports what are called rules and timers. So what you can do is figure out how long it's going to take your Pi to shut down, and then you would have to have the Pi execute that timer and then execute the shutdown sequence. The only thing is, if the Pi takes longer to shut down than you initially calculated, so let's say it's 30 seconds, it could shut off too soon. But my recommendation is you shouldn't be powering the Pi off of the easy plug. You should have just the printer and any other accessories that go along with the printer off of the plug. The Pi should remain on all the time. So that's not something I would recommend doing at all, because the Raspberry Pi is running Linux. It's a computer. Like, it's not kind of like a computer, it is actually a computer. It's running a full operating system. So you want to make sure that you are shutting it down correctly if you have to shut it down. Krista, you're throwing my camera's focus off. It's focusing on you. You need to, like, I think you might actually have to move out of the shot. Even though I have it center weighted, unless I move over a little bit, it's like trying to focus on both of us for some reason. I'm not trying to get you out of the shot. It's just, it's going out of focus. Anyways, yeah, my recommendation would be not to do what you're doing. There's probably a way to do it. I would utilize timers within Tasmota itself, but again, I would not recommend you do what you're trying to do. Having your Pi on all the time is not that big of a deal. It's a very low power device. So so that was our first one. Sai is asking, what cooling duct are you running your Ender 3 Pro, and how is using Clipper? The cooling duct is the Red Squirrel one. I believe I have that linked on, I feel like I linked that on one of the videos, and it went right back to Marlin. Clipper was just way too much work and way too much tuning for the too little end result. You know, I use my printers to print things. I don't want to spend hours tuning and, you know, messing around with settings just to get slightly faster print speeds. It's a neat firmware, but, you know, if you value your time, it's not something that's very worthwhile, in my opinion. It's just my opinion. You guys use whatever you want on your printers. But, you know, Octoprint with Marlin is what my preference is, because it works. So yeah, the Red Squirrel fan duct. That I'm using the stock hot end on that one. I'm actually going to be putting in what's it called? I'm going to be putting in our bimetal on that. Michael Burton says, from the last stream, your heat break is 0.5 millimeters shorter than the SE Copperhead version. Works on the Creality Ceratin V2, V3, same as the Soval SVO1 from the heatsink down. Okay, I appreciate you getting back to me, so I will update that listing. I did notice that our bimetal heat break is actually, and I'm pretty sure this is due to a variance in Creality's manufacturing. So I've got Creality hot ends from like 3 years ago, and I have ones that I've purchased in the last month or two. And their heat breaks vary in length anywhere from plus or minus 2 millimeters. So like when I was replacing the heat break on my Ender 5 Plus, which is an older one, our bimetal was actually about 1 millimeter longer, but at the end of the day, it didn't matter. I just want to note it. I'm sure just because Creality's changed things, or manufacturing variances, it doesn't really matter. So, but yeah, no, Michael, I appreciate that. I'm going to make a note here. I'm actually going to open up my, my Motion app here, and I'm not sponsored by them, but I've been using it. It's been great to keep track of my stuff, and I'm going to add a task right now to update bimetal heat break page to list CR10 V2 / V3 and Soval hot ends. The Soval SVO1 and 03 are the same hot end. So the SVO1, SVO3 is compatible. All right, so I'm gonna put that on there, and I'm gonna say I want to have that done by Saturday. How's that? Schedule. All right. The SE Copperhead is 1 millimeter longer than stock on all of mine. So yeah, so it sounds like that's just standard. I think it comes down to the fact that Creality just doesn't have super tight tolerances for the heat breaks, which they don't need to. If it's 1 or 2 millimeters up or down, it doesn't matter. Your fan ducts are going to account for that. All mine have, so even the stock ones. So Vincent is asking, with smooth PEI, what's the best way to set the first layer? Just eyeball it and run it a little bit higher than normal. That's what I do. So pretty quick question there. Let's see. Madcat USA, Ender 3 V2. He's got an Ender 3 V2 with E3D Hemera direct drive. I just replaced the heater core and the thermistor. Would you put shrink tube on the wires to protect them from fraying, or don't bother? I don't know what you mean by put shrink tube on the wires to prevent them from fraying. Like where on the hot end are you referring to? Because your wires, there should be no wire exposed at all where you spliced in, because I'm assuming you did some sort of splice to get it connected. There should be none exposed. But typically what most places will do, and I've done this, it really depends. It's kind of 50-50 if I'm in the mood for having more work, and if I have it handy, which I usually do. So yeah, really right here. So a lot of people, if they'll take I'm assuming you're talking about bundling the thermistor and the heater wires. A lot of places will take Kapton tape. That's what this is. This little roll is like 13 or 14 bucks. It's not cheap, but I bought this years ago, so it does last a while. And they'll take this and tape the wires together to make it so it's harder to damage them, because it's easier to, grab one wire and yank it out versus all four bundled together. So it would not be a bad idea if that's what you're asking. I probably wouldn't do heat shrink unless it's like high temp heat shrink, because it could get too hot. I'd probably do Kapton tape if you're worried about it. So it's more of an aesthetic thing, as long as it's not going to have any potential to get caught on any moving parts. So let's see. Restream, I've received 100 messages in chat. Wow. Fancy. It's like an Xbox achievement. Let me see. BW says, I've got Ender 3 V2 and want to order fans for it. I thought you had a kit set. I didn't see a kit. I'm up for improving the cooling to different style or strength. So the Ender 3 V2, if you're doing all fans, in terms of stuff, aside from the PSU fan, you're going to have to look at your power supply and see if you have a 12 volt or a 24 volt fan in there. Those are usually 60 millimeter fans. If you have the knockoff Creality power supply, I believe those are 70 millimeter fans, and we do not stock replacements for those right now. But if you're talking about the control box fan, the hot end fan, and then upgrading your layer fan, me personally, I would go with the 5015 fan and print a new mount like the Red Squirrel. I think they have one for the Ender 3 V2. I know it's a slightly different carriage from the Ender 3, but yeah, I would go with a 5015 fan for a layer fan. We do have, I thought we had an Ender fan bundle. Let me see. I know we've been working on doing more bundles to make things easier, where it's like, I just want to replace all my fans, just add to cart and be done with it. But I don't know if those got published yet. So I know we have, oh yeah, we do. Here, Ender 3 Pro fan pack. So this includes, this is if you want to replace everything and retain the stock cooling fan. If you don't want to retain the stock cooling fan, which if you have no problem printing a new mount, then I would recommend just getting the fan separately, because you're not going to need the actual, I'm trying to talk, so hang on, fan pack link, there we go. So if you're going to be replacing the the layer fan, don't get the fan pack, because the fan pack is replacing the OEM fans. So if you want to replace OEM fans, keeping the stock layer fan size, which are the 4010, that link I posted would be the one to do. If you are if you're wanting to upgrade to the 5015 fan, then you can pick up the fans separately. And this would be the 40 millimeter 24 volt one here, and this is, you need two of those if you're replacing everything. So one is for the hot end itself, that's the one that's always on, and the other one is for the control box fan. And then if you wanted to replace your power supply fan, you would have to see if you have the 12 or the 16 volt, or 12 or the 24 volt fan. Most of the Meanwells, if not all of them, I believe have a 12 volt, but I tell people, open up the power supply and look if you want to replace the power supply fan. Some people like it. The fans we have are a little bit quieter than stock, and the power supply fan is something I recommend you replace just when it goes out, because the thing is, we don't put silent fans for the power supplies because I want the power supplies to actually stay cool and not overheat. So but yeah, so this would be the 12 volt 60 millimeter if you're looking for that, and then the other one, this would be the 24 volt 60 millimeter. And like I said, either one, we carry them, and you're going to get name brand fans from us for those, either Sunons or CUI, with their either the Vapo bearings or the OmniCool bearings, which are the same thing. So CUI makes stuff for Sunon. So depends on what we can get stock, especially with how crazy things are with availability. So, all right, the next one is number 790 from Nadir, and he's asking, what are your thoughts about the Ender 5 Pro? Do you recommend it? So we have two Ender 5s. As far as I know, the difference between the 5 and the 5 Pros, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, I'm going off of memory here, is the 5 Pro comes with an all-metal extruder, and it comes with a BL Touch pre-installed. In general, I think the Ender 5 in general is a decent machine. It's basically the same build size as an Ender 3, just has a little more Z height, but bed size, it's the same. You know, it's not a bed flinger. It's still a Cartesian machine, but it's not a bed flinger. It has a bed that drops down in the Z direction. So, Blaze was saying the Ender 5 Pro did not come with BL Touch. I'm pretty sure it did. Hang on. Silent driver. Oh, silent drivers. Okay. I thought the 5 Pro came with the BL Touch. Unless they changed that. Because I know at some point they sold the Ender 5 with a BL Touch. Or was that like a promotion thing? I'm looking here. Yes, I found an Amazon listing that doesn't have BL Touch. I wonder if that was like a... like promotion at some point. I haven't looked at Ender 5s because I have two of them, so why would I look up Ender 5s again? But yeah, aluminum extruder, I knew that was a thing. So it sounds like the 5 Pro is the aluminum extruder plus the silent board. So yeah, I know the 5 Plus came with a BL Touch. I have a 5 Plus and I really like the 5 Plus. So yeah, that'd be it. So 5E60 is asking, can I print TPU with a Bowden tube? Yes, you can. It's not as easy as direct drive, but here's a couple of tips to help you out with printing TPU with a Bowden tube. One, you're going to print slow, meaning 20, 30 millimeters a second tops. Two, you're going to need an extruder that has a fully guided filament path. So most of your basic extruders will not have this. So you can either print a little adapter piece for the extruder sometimes, or you just replace it. So we're out of stock right now on our upgraded extruders. We have our tough extruders, and we're actually coming out with a new model that has not only has a fully guided filament path, but it's also the new dual gear design. But something like that is what I'd recommend. So like our V1 tough extruder, which is based on the E3D Titan design, that was a fully guided filament path, and I print TPU on my Wanhao i3 Mini with that extruder with our tough tube. So the tough tube would be the other component to that, and what that's going to do is it's going to give you a tighter path for the filament to follow and reduce the risk of it bunching up inside the tubing. So your stock tubing on your printers is going to be anywhere from like 2 millimeters up to 2.1, even sometimes 2.2 millimeters of the internal diameter. Well, your filament is usually only about 1.7 to 1.8 millimeters in diameter. 1.75 is standard, but there's variances. So 1.7 to 1.8 is the diameter you'll see. So you've got a lot of slop in the tube when it's being fed through there. Now, for PLA, PETG, ABSs, filaments that are a harder type, it's not a problem. It just means you have longer retracts and longer extrudes before the filament starts coming out. The problem with TPU is you don't want to be using retractions, and you also don't want to give the filament any chance to bunch up on itself, and a tube with a sloppier internal diameter, bigger internal diameter, is going to present issues when trying to push something that's soft that wants to bunch up on itself. So going down to a tubing like our tough tube that has a tighter internal diameter is going to reduce that. Now, you're never gonna get the same kind of print speed out of a Bowden setup as you would a direct drive with flexible filaments, just because of the physics of the whole thing. And the longer your Bowden tube is, the slower you'll have to go. It's not impossible. I've done it. So if you're occasionally printing TPU and you equip the printer, it's fine. But direct drive, one of the things where direct drive really shines is the flexible filaments because of the short filament path. So hopefully it helps. So, and we carry a bunch of that stuff. We should have what's the word I'm looking for? We should have the new Tough Extruder V2s in about 2 to 3 weeks tops. We're just waiting on them to be made and come in. So, Peter says, I asked you this before, but the Easy Board. Wait, this Easy Board is a bit of a trouble, but now it only feeds 5 volt to the fan. I remember you said you were running step downs on there, so it sounds like you fried something, Peter. Unfortunately, if you fried something on there because of a miswire or something, there's really not much I can do in terms of troubleshooting. If you're getting 5 volts to the fan, you definitely screwed something up, because those MOSFETs for the fans are wired directly to the V-in. So if you're feeding at 12 volts, you'll get 12 volts out of them. If you're feeding at 24, you're going to get 24 out of there. So it sounds like you did something to break it. Because I know you said you were running step downs after the fans, which I specifically told you not to do on multiple occasions, because they have way higher risks of shorting out and damaging boards instead of just using the proper fan voltage. So let's see. Sai is asking, we got an Ender 6. We got an Ender 6 for our lab, and the V-wheels are chipping off the material even after adjusting eccentric nuts. Any recommendations? Well, they shouldn't be chipping. Some shedding or like dust is normal on V-slot wheels, especially if they're newer. So I would not worry about it. Make sure everything's adjusted. But if you're getting chunks coming out of it, that is not normal, and those wheels are defective, and they should be replaced. So let's see. Number 796, Shane says he's got the Ender 5 Plus with our LCD screen. He says it shows E1 min temp printer halted, extruder thermistor bad perhaps. So E1 min temp can mean a couple of things. So min temp means that the printer thermistor is reading below the minimum temperature that is set in the firmware, which I think is either 0 or -5. Now, min temp can be one of two things. You have bad thermistor, or what usually happens, sadly, is that something shorted out, like maybe you were working on the hot end with some metal tools, or you were cleaning it with a wire brush and, accidentally sent higher voltage into the thermistor lines, which damages the processor. So, if you have another printer with another board that can go into that machine, I would switch it out and see. The other thing you could also do is take a multimeter and read the resistance across the 2 pins going to the thermistor. And at room temperature, your 100K thermistor, depending on what temperature your room is, it'll be in the range of anywhere from 80K to 100K ohms of resistance. But it should be a higher resistance. So the problem is if you get a normal reading, you probably have a board that got damaged. And the most common thing I've seen where people will get a min temp or a max temp error is they were doing something with their hot end, whether they were changing a nozzle or they were cleaning it. And the most common way to clean it, and I clean mine with these, you just got to be careful, is with a wire brush. Well, the problem is, even if your printer hot end is not being told to heat, you still have the positive line of whatever your power supply puts out on one of those two wires, meaning you always have either positive 12 or 24 volts available at the hot end. So if you're going through and cleaning your hot end with a wire brush and it makes contact with that wire and also makes contact with one of the thermistor legs, you're sending that higher voltage into the I/O pins of your processor, and on most boards it will kill them. You know, unlike Duet boards and our Easy board, we have protections in place to try to mitigate that as much as possible, because people do have those issues and they do that. I've done it once on one of my machines and I've had to replace the processor on a board. I did on my Wanhao i3 Mini, and those boards are hard to find. So I had to replace the processor, but the number one cause of that is usually messing with the hot end and accidentally shorting it out. So you got to be very careful. What I recommend is if you're really worried about it and you know you can't be careful and you just don't want to risk it, heat your hot end up to like 240, 250C, turn the printer power off and work quickly to clean off the nozzle if that's what you're trying to do. Because as long as the printer power is off, you can hit those, you can hit those wires as much as you want. It's not going to do anything because there's no power there. But even if your nozzle's off, because the MOSFETs for the heaters are usually on most boards switch the negative line, you still have that positive line available there, even if it's not being told to heat. So, Vincent is asking about the Lurge boards. He's saying they supposedly require no compiling of the firmware, and all the settings are done from the LCD. So I have messed with the Lurge boards, and Lurge is a closed source Chinese firmware. They're not great. They're low quality boards, and I'm not a fan of their firmware. Yeah, it's neat, but I'd rather use Clipper over a Lurge board. So, Skydown, do we get bimetal heat breaks for the Creality Sprite? They're on order, but they're taking forever, so they're kind of low priority right now. Is there so Dominic is asking, and this is a quick question. I should probably like note this just because I know you're listening. These ones don't really need to get time stamped. You can if you want. Okay. So anyways, is there an easy A-bell mount that fits the Red Squirrel Ender 5 hot end mount? So typically the Red Squirrel mounts, they utilize whatever the HeroMe Gen 3 or 4, it's not the 5. It utilizes brackets for those. Because when I printed mine, I had to use a bracket, and I have it saved somewhere on my computer. But yeah, so the Red Squirrel coolers, typically the ones I found for the Crealities, will use the HeroMe mounts. So, which those are still on Thingiverse. So, Sai, oh, this is a good one. Sai is asking, why was the ANET A8 a fire hazard? Okay, well, there's multiple reasons. The number one reason was because it did not have thermal runaway protection. There was a time, and most printers now, because of loudmouths like myself and other people getting on the Chinese manufacturers, most printers these days come with thermal runaway enabled. A lot of the manufacturers were disabling it intentionally to try to cover up issues with the product because of the poor quality. So that was number one reason. No thermal runaway on a low quality Chinese printer that had a board with crappy terminals with people building it that didn't understand basic electrical concepts on an acrylic frame was a really good recipe for fire. The other thing is the stock power supplies were really bad. The stock power supplies were sources of fire issues. The termination of the wires going into their control board were also a source of fire. It was just many different things that added up to these printers just getting a reputation for literally burning people's, garages and houses down. Like, no joke. There's literally pictures online of ANETs that have burned down people's garages and parts of their homes. Yeah, so it wasn't just a joke. Apollo, you are on that, is asking, why do you hate Deltas? You should really check out the FL Sun Super Racer. I don't like Deltas because they take up as much, if not more, space than a Cartesian or a Core XY machine, and have a fraction of the build volume. Deltas are also just a pain in the ass to dial in and build. Like, there's way more opportunity for people to do things incorrectly. And as somebody that's had a few Deltas, I will not mess with Deltas anymore. I think they're an antiquated design at this point. If I'm going for something with a faster, motion kinematic structure, I'm going with a Core XY build. I think Deltas are just, at this point, they're kind of cool, but they're just a pain. The amount of effort exerted into getting a Delta running well versus a Cartesian or Core XY is not worth it, in my opinion. This is just my opinion. You guys can take my advice or what I say to heart, or you can, you're like, Tim, you're stupid, I'm not listening. It doesn't affect me. So Larry Russo, is this Larry Russo I know from like my childhood? Or I don't know too many people with the last name Russo. I'm curious. Do you know my father? But anyways, he's asking, so he said he's got a CR10S, he's got an EasyBoard V1, and he's got a Bondtech extruder and the Mosquito 50-watt heater. I'm getting clogs in my hot end every time I try to print. 0.4 nozzle, PLA at 210 degrees. Any ideas? So, not the Larry Russo I know. I would be like, man, small world. But anyways, so it sounds like you have an all-metal hot end on there. Is that correct? I'm looking, when I'm asking people's questions, the delay should be short enough where I can actually look and see. So if you have an all metal hot end in general, all metal hot ends are going to be more prone to jamming with PLA no matter what brand you have. Whether it's our brand, meaning like what I'm going to do to this, I'm going to put our bimetal heat break in here. It's going to be more prone to clogging than the PTFE line. And it's just because the PLA material, it's like a starch plastic. It's a starch-based plastic. And it's just more prone to sticking to the heat break, especially because it's a starch-based plastic. So if it's new, and I equate this to, like, if you guys ever cooked with cast iron, over time, as you cook with cast iron, it builds up a seasoning where things, where things are sticking to it, and then as you get the seasoning built up, they stop sticking to it as easily. So the other thing you want to do is put a filament oiler on there and reduce your retraction. I do actually have a whole page here. And I'm going to link that here. And this is applicable to any brand of hot end, whether it's our hot ends or it's our, your stock hot end with an upgraded heat break from us, or E3D or whatever. This is a really good page, and this is something I typed up after my struggles using all metal hot ends and all the little ins and outs. So highly recommend reading through that. And there's a lot of different tips in there. The best thing I found, if you just want to try something right off the bat, the best thing I found is drop your retraction down, by 0.5 millimeter or even 1 millimeter, depending on how high it is, and then add a filament oiler into the mix. And all the filament oiler is, if you can't print a housing, just take a little sponge, put some oil on it, take a rubber band and band it, and put it around the filament before it goes into the extruder. So basically you want to have some sort of lubrication there, especially when it's newer, to get that hot end seasoned. So the other thing you can do too, if you have any dry PTFE lubricant, is get everything out of that nozzle, disassemble it, get access to the heat break, and put a little shot of the dry PTFE lubricant down into the heat break and let it dry. That will also help too, to put a coating on there. The only thing is, I have noticed that only lasts a couple of weeks because it does get worn away as you print. So, but all that stuff is discussed in that article I just linked. So, let's see. Tommy O, do we have a heat break for the CR10 V2, V3? We just got confirmation that our bimetal heat break actually fits in the CR10 V2, V3. So I figured it would. It says on the listing right now that it doesn't, but I had someone come in to chat, they have it, and they said yes, it does fit. So I'm pulling up our stuff. So bimetal heat break for most Creality hot ends. That'd be this one. So there we go. So, and that's what I'm going to be putting in this little guy here. So I'm just going to update the listing here. So CR10, CR10 V2 and V3. All right, there we go. We're going to update that. And I can check that off my list of things to do. How's that? CR10 V2, V3. I'm just adding it to the categories here on the site. I thought we had an SVO3 section. Do we not have an SVO3 section? Hey, Tor, I know you're watching. We need to make an SVO3 section on our website. I'm not seeing it here. Like a printer upgrade section. You know what I mean? Like a category. I don't know why we don't. We have firmware and stuff for it. I guess it got missed. There we go. Anyways, you guys, I'm actually keeping up with the questions today. You guys need to ask more questions or we're going to wrap things up early. All right, Justin Dybell, this isn't really a question. He's just saying convert your Ender 5 Plus to a Merc 1 Plus. Justin, I've got enough stuff to do, and that does not involve converting a printer that works fine, that is currently running jobs for SpaceX right now, into something else. I thought we had the SVO1 and 03 together. No, we don't, because they're different bed sizes. I thought my 5 was not printing, but it is. It's printing jobs right now. So there's no more questions. Last call for questions. I'm going to give it a couple seconds here. I'm going to take a sip from my balls. Look, Chris is taking notes with pen and paper when she has a laptop right in front of her.
I prefer.
Yeah? I got to add you onto a... I think it's called the brand account or whatever. I have no idea. I got to figure out how to do it. Last call for questions. Look, it's raining. Are you going to stock any other MKS stuff? Possibly. I have to test. So, let's see. Yeah, there we go. There's some questions. Some of these are generic. How to improve prints? That's too generic. Come on, try harder. Let's see. John from Australia is asking about the Ender 5 Dual Z kit. We have them. Again, it just got deprioritized. Yeah, I think that's about it. I think we are going to wrap this up because you guys are just low effort. I mean, good questions. Give me good questions. I'll try to give you good answers. So, anyways, Krista has a surprise for Remo. Remo has. Hang on. Let me turn the filters off on here so he can actually pick you up. Hang on. Noise gate. All right. There we go.
Hi, Remo. What do we got? We got a toy. Remo.
Was it ice cream?
Yeah.
Can I see? Remo, do you want this one? Do you want the Choco Doggo? Can we sit? Hey, Remo. Sit. Hey, Remo, speak. Go get it. I got another one. Oh, can we sit? Can we shake? Can we speak? Good boy. No.
And then his favorite.
Hey, Remo, I have food. Remo, I have food. Oh. Stop, sit. Shake. Sit. Speak. Touch. Sit. Speak. Shake. Speak. Good boy. All right, let me turn the noise filters back on. There we go. And, yeah, if you have stuff he wants, he listens very well. So, anyways, I will wrap this up. If you guys want to get notified when we go live and you don't want to rely on YouTube's crappy notification system, there is a link in the video description that you can click and put your email in, and you will only get emails related to when we go live and when we post new videos. That's it. There's no other marketing spam for that. So Anyways, I do. People say no more moi. No, I have
Take
moi.
one break from this.
It's just a balls day today. Okay, I still have. Did you steal one of my mois?
I did not.
Oh, I finished one yesterday. So still have my mois. I just could not. Nostalgia got the best of me. I was like, I'm gonna buy some balls at Micro Center. So, anyways, I will talk to you all later. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream, and I'll see you on the next one. As always, happy printing.